So I'm Joey Ramirez. I'm one of the owners of Freaks and Geeks actually, and the head TO there. So I was in charge of like event planning, trying to get people, seeing what events the community wanted, and really like getting the community to speak for themselves and giving the community a voice. I was a Denton resident for almost 10 years before this hit, and yeah, it's been fun.
A bit about myself. I'm Arthur Williams. I'm the general manager of Freeplay Richardson. I've been playing fighting games in Dallas since about 2000. So how are things in the Dallas area as far as competitive gaming goes before COVID? Can't really answer that for all competitive gaming, but for fighting games, we were in a reasonably healthy spot, but we were not at the absolute best. If you look at the numbers that Dallas was having before Street Fighter V came out, they were always on an upwards trend. More and more people were playing Street Fighter 4, more and more people were playing Marvel vs. Capcom 3, more people were playing Mortal Kombat and the anime games. And Smash was just killing it. Like, Smash has always been the biggest fighting-ish game in Dallas. You have, I don't know, 100-man weeklies or whatever they're hosting at FX Game Exchange.
Our biggest one was actually Smash Bros. So we started with Smash 4, started with, 8-man tournaments, and it got all the way up to some days 70, 80, 100. I think I don't even know what the largest we've had, man. I want to say it was like 150 or something. We started up something called Weeb Wednesdays because we'd always get a bunch of the anime kids to come down. Not kids, man. They're our age, a bunch of dudes that are into anime, and they would come down and kick it. And then we were like, yeah, let's just start playing fighting games, man. So we started with BB Tag, and it started with just a few of us showing up, and then all of a sudden, like, someone's crew would show up, and then people would start driving out from Oklahoma to come down, and then we started dipping our toes into the traditional FGC. So Tekken, Street Fighter, Soul Calibur.
Well, if you look at this after Street Fighter V came out, it went from about 20 or 30 people showing up to the weeklies we're having for Street Fighter 4 versus gameplay, to a high point of maybe 50 or so people coming to the weeklies for Street Fighter V. Tekken 7 was doing great things. Tekken honestly has always been on the up and up in Dallas, but just kind of before COVID happened, I would say Street Fighter V had been falling off. Dragon Ball FighterZ had been falling off. Tekken 7 had lost its place to play. At the beginning of Street Fighter V, you could find matches at any night of the week in a reasonably large gathering at either someone's house or versus Gameplay or Epic Gaming Center or GGG, and then later on, 3 of those closed, but you still had the Esports Stadium and Dr. African's Ventures down in South Dallas. But there wasn't as much of hosting that was taking place in mid-cities in North Dallas and Fort Worth as there had been beforehand. And with the Ice Cave stopping, then yeah, Tekken kind of not being played as much either.
I think the FGC scene was getting stronger. We started seeing more people more interested in fighting games. And the game industry actually putting out fighting games and updates. There was little tournaments here and there, like I was never invited. I'd like to go sometime at the Ice Cave. I remember hearing about that place, and I thought that was pretty cool. I thought it was interesting. There was a bunch of small communities, but I felt like everything was so separated. So maybe after all this pandemic just goes away, we can start being in touch more and really connecting with those communities instead of having to be like, oh yeah, man, do you want to go here or here this week?
If you looked at the state of the vintage side of things, you had Freeplay hosting, you had a few other places where they would have older games. And hilariously, I think that the older games were, as far as like traditional fighting games went, the most stable scene in town. The largest scene in town, aside from Smash, I would say, was Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. We were having monthly tournaments that would have up to 60 entrants. We would have Super Turbo monthlies as well that would have, I don't know what the maximum number we had was, but I'm sure it was over 40 or 50. Retro games were doing really well in Dallas before this. Other games were doing fine. It was not quite the golden age, I would say, which was probably 2010 or so, but we had plenty of people coming out playing games for whatever game they wanted to play.
I think that everything was growing, and it was getting to that point where everyone started communicating, but things just kind of fell through, of course, because of the pandemic. Everything just came to a screeching halt.
Now to growing concerns about the deadly coronavirus officially hitting the U.S. Here's what
ABC News: cases are on an upward trajectory in just about the entire country.
Rudy Gobert has tested positive for the coronavirus.
I think it will be easily by the end of 2021 and perhaps even into the next year before we start having some semblances of normality.
When was the first time I heard about COVID? I want to say it was just after New Year's. Wuhan was closing down in China, and it was supposed to be a really nasty disease, kind of like a SARS. It was worrisome. It kind of reminded me specifically of when SARS was happening. Was at 2003, where a lot of places would just have nasty outbreaks and it was really bad, or like the H1N1, the swine flu, where I remember specifically there was a convention in Seattle, PAX, I want to say, where they afterwards called it the H1 Nerd One because of how many people that spread it at that convention. Any sort of large gathering, particularly in a place like this, could potentially become hazardous to your health if you have a contagious disease heading around. So I was worried about it.
I think I was just like, scrolling through on my phone and saw something about like, there's this illness out there. And so for me, I'm like, I can't worry about that right now. I can't be thinking about that. We've had bird flu, we've had swine flu, we've had Ebola, that kind of stuff come through. And so for me, I was like, it's just going to be the same thing. Everyone just needs to wash their hands more, be safe, be careful. I never would have guessed that we would have had to, permanently shut down our store over it. But I didn't think it was a big deal at first. Of course, I was on my guard, but you started seeing other states were really getting hit hard before Texas, I think. And when they started getting hit hard, that's when I started getting worried. I was like, man, this isn't good. We started seeing a slowdown of people coming in the store, not so many people coming out. And I was like, is it Corona or is it just like slow, but as soon as they started talking about like public health mandates and stuff like that, that's whenever it hit me with the realization like this isn't going away.
A friend of mine married a woman that lives in China, and she lives in Wuhan and posts videos on Facebook occasionally, and she was posting stuff about how to correctly wear a mask. And that always kind of stuck with me. And this was pretty early on that she'd be making that sort of post. And I'm from College Station, where the first COVID case happened. I was kind of worried about my parents because they still live there. But the moment where it really started to affect us, I would say, was the week of spring break. It was all over the news, and we were trying to keep business running as regular, but it was kind of clear that people were having less inclination to come to a place like this. Spring break is typically our #1 busiest, most profitable week of the year, just because everyone wants to go out and do something fun. It's a great fun place, whatever. Well, spring break week, we had no one coming in. And the next week, I believe, was when Dallas ordered everything shut down. So that was the moment where it was obviously going to affect us.
There was I think it was a Thursday. Thursdays are our Smash nights. And I think it was a Thursday, if I recall correctly, that they started saying stuff about like locking stuff down. So, being like, yeah, y'all can't have X amount of people. There's a 50%. Whenever they did the 50% thing, that's when I was like, yeah, now I'm worried. 50% of the total occupancy can be allowed in. That's when I was like, man, that's not a huge deal, but that definitely cuts down any events that we have, because then I can't, safely have people in. And honestly, our occupancy was like 150 people, but I wasn't about to let even 75 people be in there, because like I care for my people, man. I care for my community, and I don't want anyone getting sick or getting messed up. And I remember that Thursday, it was like a 50-50, like, should I cancel the tournament or should I keep going? I asked the community, and the community said, just keep going. This might be the last one that we get to do for a while. But then the following week, man, that's when we just had to call it. I had to call it on, I think it was a Weeb Wednesday. Just be like, yeah, guys, we're not doing it. We're not doing it Thursday. We're not doing it Friday. We're not doing it for a while. And then that's when it hit the hardest, I think, because I love running a store, I love selling games, but I love the tournaments more than anything. And so to have that taken away, that's just, it was kind of heartbreaking.
At the time, the question was, how do we get people to come in? And the answer was very quickly, you don't. The city of Dallas had a shutdown ordinance for all places like this. Then later the governor did. And shortly after that, we were allowed to sell alcohol products to go. And so we did try to empty our old stock. At least 3 days a week we were open, but it definitely wasn't the same numbers and wasn't the same staffing options. Mostly what we had to do was try to ride it out and wait for us to be allowed to be open again though. So I stayed at home and I cooked some stuff and tried to keep myself occupied. I didn't go anywhere for weeks at a time. I think after the first couple of weeks we kind of ran out of groceries, so I'd go to the grocery store like twice a week. And I had a tank of gas that lasted me, I tanked up in March and it lasted me until the beginning of June. I think that's the longest the single tank of gas has ever lasted me in my life. Essentially, there wasn't much we could do during the height of it. In June, we were allowed to reopen, and the previous manager was not willing to come back due to Corona concerns. So Corey offered me the position, and I took it. I'm happy to have the job, and I am still learning as I go. And we have taken it upon ourselves to try to be as hygienic as possible. We have hand sanitizing stations everywhere. We use high quality cleaners, and we've also implemented some social distancing. As you can see behind me, there's several feet in between the Versus City cabinets. We have a mask policy and we have gloves. If you need mask gloves when you come in, you're welcome to get them. We have spray bottles that if you want to clean a game yourself, you're welcome to. We try to make everything as clean, as safe as possible. And that's what we've been doing about Corona so far.
We went through a lot of stuff trying to decide how to transition to an online setting. As far as the store goes, we were doing like pickup at the door, curbside pickup kind of stuff. And we've always sold online, so we let stuff kind of trickle on there. But as far as the online tournaments, like one of my big things about tournaments is like I want to deliver quality. So if I'm not delivering quality online and I don't feel comfortable delivering online and I'm not 100% awesome at doing it, then I don't want to charge anyone. I've seen other tournaments ask for money and get half, if not a quarter of the turnout because people don't want to pay money for online tournaments. You got the lag and all that other stuff going on. But yeah, the transition, I don't even think it was a transition. I think that it was just a cutoff. It just ended like instantly. When we had to start making decisions about shutting down and trying to figure out what the next step was, it was still up in the air, and we were just kind of playing it by ear. But we tried so hard, so hard to keep afloat. We were like, all right, as soon as this is done, like we're gonna have the ability to start it back up, get tournaments going again, have events going again, people come out shopping again. We kept trying to look at that the grass is greener on the other side kind of thing. Like, all right, is it gonna happen? Like, are we gonna get to that point? Are we gonna get to that grass? But when we started realizing that our bank account was running more and more dry every time, that's when it started getting even more difficult. The first worry that we had was our employees, and all the people that work with us, because this year we actually hired 3 employees, or not this year, but when we got our new location, we hired 3 employees, good friends of ours. And the first thing we did was, all right, we're cutting our paychecks for now. Like, we're not paying ourselves at all. We're gonna make sure our employees get paid though. So that's the first thing we did, is like, all right, we're gonna budget this. Like, we told our employees, we can cover you for these 2 months or these 3 months, but once that ends, like, we're either gonna be shut down or we're gonna have to get rid of y'all, because there's literally nothing else that we can do at that point. The money's gonna be dry. We started still just crunching numbers, and monetarily it just didn't make sense. Whenever we knew that it was kind of a done deal, we were like, all right, last ditch effort. Some of our community members in like the fighting game communities, Smash, Anime, and FGC, they were like, hey, you should do a GoFundMe, right? And so we did a GoFundMe when we knew the money was running out, so that way we could cover our employees just a little bit longer, maybe some of the rent, just to try to hold on longer. And we raised the money and it paid for another month and a half, but it fell through. But I just want to say, like, if there's one thing that the FGC community does well, it is come together as a community when the time needs it. Like, our customers donated a bit, but like 90% of all the donations, man, were just the people that go to the tournaments.
So what do I think about how DFW is transitioning to how events are played now? Well, for starters, I think I have to answer that by saying that everyone knows that playing a fighting game, right, it's about beating the guy next to you. It's not about playing online. Online is just always going to be worse playing a fighting game. A game where you're supposed to have the fastest reactions possible, do a cool whiff punish or a really accurate timing to do a hard combo. You just can't do that with any sort of variable latency online. Everything's always a little bit different. I've kind of known that online play is not as fun as offline play since playing on Kylera and playing CVS2 EO on the original Xbox, I don't know, 18 years ago. But everyone, I'm sure, is hoping that eventually the tournaments where everyone shows up and is not worried about disease will come back. Like, there's something really special about being in a room with 1,000 people that are all cheering when you see something incredible happen in a video game that you play. Dallas has slowed down its efforts, I would say, in hosting events, hosting tournaments, and also just in playing in general. I'm not seeing as much conversation about playing the game, not seeing people trying to get better. And right now, it just feels like there's not a whole lot to strive for because you just can't play the games the way they're meant to be played. With that said, there are several online tournaments that I know that local players are playing in. Manicus is running a series that the name escapes me right now. Hopefully it'll come to me later. There's a Super Turbo tournament that a lot of the guys that play here normally have been entering, the Machorino Cup, hosted by Arturo Sanchez. There's online Third Strike happening. Dallas is still playing fighting games, but none of us are really playing the way we want to be playing, I think.
Yeah, I think, all of our shortcomings that we've had before as, community leaders, you know what I'm saying, before the pandemic, of not getting together and not being on the same page, I think that's what we can work on right now. If all these smaller tournaments come together right now and say, hey man, let's start getting something together sponsored by all of us, we'll have each one of our little team members do something for it. That way we can keep the scene alive, or at least have like a community hub or something, man, just to keep the people, aware. I think that's what DFW needs right now. Because people like online tournaments, but it's not the same. I can't go up to next to you and it's not the same me asking for advice next to you and you showing me how to do stuff than it is like us being on a Discord call or something. Like, it's cool, but it's not that same level of social interaction that I think that really makes the FGC further itself every time. In this time that we can't have an excuse of, no, we can't meet up doing this, no, we can't communicate doing that because we're busy. Like, we got all the time in the world now, man. Yeah, we're working, but we're not off running around running a tournament necessarily. So I think that the community leaders need to come together, formulate a plan, so that way whenever everything does chill out, like, we're ready and we're hitting it head on, because there's nothing stopping anyone from being, the top dog in the situation. I think that if everyone played their cards right and got together, like, you could be the next DreamHack if you want to. It's not impossible. And I know Freeplay relies on that stuff. They rely on their community. And so I think it's cool that they're getting together. I know they're doing a pretty good job. And so I think that the people that are starting to try to do these things and keep themselves alive, like, you got to watch them and see what they're doing and kind of learn. And we got to keep moving forward from there.
I don't want to group lots of people together, but I also don't know what else to do. During the lockdown, we were running online tournaments every week. They were not what I wanted them to be, to say the least. If we had more of the organizers from Dallas trying to organize online events, that would definitely help for online locals. Aside from that, I would say that there are plenty of options out there if you're looking for online tournaments that are just not local. It seems like everyone's kind of realized that if you want to run a tournament, you have to do online. It's now they're kind of popping up all over. And the real thing you have to do is talk about them and get interest in them and participate in them. That's about it, I would say.
I think with these tournaments, like, yeah, some people are going to get used to playing online and some people are going to enjoy it. But again, I think you got to use this time to market that. You got to be like, look, we are a tournament. We exist here. DFW is not that far away from Oklahoma. What's to say that you don't keep inviting those Oklahoma people? Like, we got to reach out. We got to have a social media presence as a whole, FGC, in DFW, so that way we can get more people involved. Because again, like, I mean, I'm craving it, man. I'm craving it. I want that social interaction. And the more people that seem to reach out about the community and like take care of the community and like are trying to do these things, that's the kind of place that I'm going to go whenever it ends. So I think that we got to raise awareness. All these people that are only doing online stuff, maybe by the end of it they'll be more comfortable saying, oh yeah man, I love these tournaments that these people ran, like dude, I want to meet, you know, this dude in person and play with him. And I don't think people are going to get used to it. I think people are going to be scared to go out for a little bit still, and people are going to want to take it easy and just kind of sit back and be like, oh, okay, well that person had a 10-man tournament, I'm going to give it a week and see if anyone got sick. Okay, it went up to 15 people, no one's sick. Okay, the US is starting to open back up again. You know, that's, I think people are going to wait for that. So at first it's going to be slow, but it's going to be kind of like a new revival of the FGC. Like whenever these things first started, like these grassroots, man, we're going to have those, you know, 4-man round robins, you know, 8-man Swiss, 12-man bracket, 20-man bracket. We're going to have that kind of stuff slowly building back up again. And I don't think that online's going to hurt that. I think we're reaching out to more people that maybe weren't comfortable with coming out, but since they made some online friends or have seen like, oh wait, I'm actually okay at this in my area, I might be able to further myself with this. So I think it'll hurt, help in the end. I don't think it's going to hurt it at all.
For venues, it's definitely hurting us. If people are coming through your door here, esports stadium, or anywhere else of that sort, then that's good. And if people are not coming through your door because they're staying home because of Corona, whatever, well, then that's hitting you in the pocket, right? I mean, you're out the money. But let's ignore the venue portion of it and just look at the individual players. Will playing online hurt you? In a very short term, sort of, but not really. Used to, before I'd go to a tournament for a couple of weeks, I would stop playing online. I'd play offline only just to make sure that my timing was accurate. And then I'd go back to playing online afterwards. And it wasn't that big of a jump. Will it stop people from wanting to go meet up in person? I don't think so. I think that once this is all over, once we have a safe, effective coronavirus vaccine, I'm pretty sure that people are going to want to come out again. They're going to want to see their friends. They're going to want to have a good time in person. And I think they're going to want to play video games together again. I think that right now is bad, sure. I don't think that playing online is going to make us better. I don't think it's going to make us worse in the end.
So coming out of this, I see the FGC coming out stronger. Like I've been saying, like pretty much the whole interview, like we just need to get together, man. We need everyone to come together. I'm so out of the loop, to be completely honest with you. I've been so dissociated from all the stuff just because, like, I'm trying to figure out my own life now that my store shut down, you know. But in the back of my mind, I still got the tournaments. I'm ready. I'm ready. The moment that someone says, "Hey, I need a TO," I'm ready. Like the moment that things go back to normal, I'm ready to just show up and play. Like I don't even care. I see us coming out of this as stronger as long as we take those steps, man. And I really hope that the FGC can come together, and at least like the leaders of the FGC can come together. I personally was just dabbling my feet into the FGC non-Smash side of stuff, so I don't know who the leaders are, but you know, I hope that we can try to get together and try to formulate a plot and think of a way that we can come out of this stronger together. No more cliques, no more having to choose where we're going. When you leave my local, I say, bro, you need to go to this one tomorrow if you're trying to get some talent in. Or hey, the dudes from Oklahoma said they were going over here Saturday, you need to go hit that up. That's what we need. And so I think with what you guys are doing, and then if all the other TOs can get together, like we can come out of it way stronger.
I think that no matter what happens at the end of this, the current crop of games is not going to be doing well. New games will, if they're released after everything is over and done with, generate a lot more interest and a lot more players to show up and play in person. Beyond that, wear a mask, practice good hygiene, social distance, wash your hands.
Once these things like blow over, like if and when it does, like I'm definitely going to pay back the community in some way, shape, or form, make sure that they get a quality tournament and a good place to come, and probably just do some free tournaments for a while with some cash prize bonuses, and just give the people back something, man, because they came in clutch for us, and I really appreciate what they've done, you know.